Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and this morning I'm looking at a book in family law which I think is a very important book for your library if you're involved, as I am, with children and the issues surrounding the various legal problems that can arise. This book comes to us from LexisNexis and the family law imprint, which was originally from Jordan Publishing. I'd like to thank Lexis for taking this book on. The book is called A Child's Journey Through Contemporary Issues in Child Protection. It's a bit of a long title. It's about child protection law, basically. It's been written by Norton and Rhiannon Davies, and I think it's a first-class book. It's not a long book at all. I'll show it in a moment, but it's certainly a book that I think anybody involved in this area of law, local authorities, solicitors, barristers, so forth, and judges, should certainly read it and be aware of the content. Elizabeth and I discussed the book, and she was the lead writer. We gave a title for the work the following: Linking Law with Social Work Practice, a new legal text for professionals involved in child protection. When I say, obviously, it's social work practice, social workers, that's included really within the local government orbit. There's the book itself, there's the spine, then there's some detail on the back. It's dealing very much with the modern problems we've got, with the problem of the child in today's modern society. It deals with child protection process, fact-finding, of course, which is a big area for us at the bar, things like trafficking, sexual exploitation, forced marriage and so forth, radicalisation. It's not a long book. It runs to 170 pages. There's the index at the back, which is paragraph numbered. As I say, the actual index is quite helpful. It's quite detailed. References are to paragraph numbering, you see. Always check that, because sometimes it's a bit confusing. Then there are references at the back of the various chapters which assist. But if we go to the front of the book, you can see there's the actual front page. And after that, you've got some blurb about the book, and then a very useful foreword by His Honour Judge Paul Lopez. It's always worth reading the preface, because you get some idea in a very short few sentences of exactly what worth the book may be to you. And I think, you know, there's very succinct commentary by the judge. Some acknowledgements here from the team. Then the actual contents itself of the book. As I said, it's a short paperback, not a large number of chapters. You can see the chapter headings there as I show it through. And then we get to 10 chapters plus an index. And at the end of each chapter you have references. So the references are the bibliographical details that you may be looking for. There is some case law. You can see the case law is listed. Then you've got the statutes, of course. Then you also have the statutory instruments, all important. But I'm hoping this book will give anybody, because you can read through, although it's got paragraph numbering and footnotes, you can read through this book pretty quickly, and I think it's worth looking at. It starts off with the child protection process and the family justice system, and as I say, you've got the occasional footnote all the way through. All in all, an important book, and one that I believe is of great help to all of us. And as I've indicated, the family law imprint is especially helpful to all of us in practice, because it just saves quite a lot of time and it points us in the right direction, especially in what is a very emotive area. Now, what do we say? Well, we say this: can there be any other area of law that is more sensitive, more concerning and more shocking than this one? And the book, A Child's Journey Through Contemporary Issues in Child Protection, which has been recently published by LexisNexis Family Law, seeks to provide the following: clear, succinct and authoritative commentary on this vexed subject, and it's ably supported by research references. And His Honour Judge Paul Lopez, who writes the foreword, remarks that anyone practising in the field of child protection needs an understanding of the legal framework upon which the issues of the case are to be determined, and the social work practice that informs the decision-making process. And in linking the law with social work practice, this book provides a succinct plain speaking approach to the formidable challenges inherent in this area of law, and they are formidable. It's a difficult area, it's an area I practice in, and I understand the need to have as much information as possible. Now, in the book, the first 2 chapters deal with the child protection process, the family justice system as it currently stands, and issues pertaining to evidence in public law children cases. And of course, in the past, as I'm sure you know, there's a lot of legal aid involved in this area, and of course one is dealing with the authorities, if I can put it that way. Now, the chapters following the first 2 cover, with the possible exception of neglect, they read like a litany of evils: domestic abuse, human trafficking, modern slavery, child sexual exploitation, forced marriage and honour-based violence, and of course child radicalisation, and then the horror of female genital mutilation. Notice, if you will, that by their very nature, the majority of these crimes are perpetrated against women and girls. Now, the United Kingdom's track record on the appalling crime of FGM is particularly worrying. No prosecutions. Yes, it's a criminal offence, but no, there have been no convictions as such to date. It seems as though the process of prevention and safeguarding of potential victims is clouded by cultural sensitivities and language barriers, spurious and flimsy excuses, to say the least, for inaction. And it's not as though it's been off the agenda for any period of time. It's around all the time and nothing is done about it. So we will have to come back and rise up the political agenda again. And unfortunately, it's probably going to be some awful story and factual situation that leads to that. However, we are where we are. And this book, I think, does help in at least trying to point out the difficulties as we have a much more culturally diverse society. And usefully, of course, the book refers to recent guidance from the Department of Health, which reminds professionals that it must always be remembered that fears of being branded racist or discriminatory must never weaken the rightful determination of professionals to protect the vulnerable, especially those at risk of being subjected to FGM. And of course, it's not just FGM, it's other areas too. Now, the book mentions that a tougher line on FGM has been taken in France, where instances of this odious practice have apparently diminished. Of course, recent legislation in 2015, now 3 years ago, fiercely entitled Zero Tolerance for Barbaric Cultural Practices, has been enacted in Canada. It's just a great shame, I'm afraid, that it has not been enacted here and in fact used in practice. Much then of this excellent legal text is orientated towards social workers who need to be conversant with the law on child protection matters. That is really, apart from the fact that it should be seen by all legal practitioners, they are obviously one of the main users, I would have thought, of the book. Equally, we think the book will make lawyers more aware of the pressures faced by social workers who have to contend with the often intractable difficulties inherent in child protection. I'm well aware of that as both an elected counsellor and as a lawyer about the difficulties, and one has to understand also the difficult conditions that many social workers are working in, which is quite often not understood. Let me conclude by saying that, slender volume though it is, it's an important book. It's come to us from LexisNexis Family Law Library, and it contains a wealth of references for all. It gives you a lot of ideas for further research and is an authoritative exposition on the relevant law as it stands today. I'm recording this in the middle of 2018. I think there's a lot of work to be done. This is a subject which is not going away, and it's still not being treated as seriously as it should be, because we're dealing with human beings and their treatment by other human beings. All professionals, in our view, dealing with child protection issues should acquire a copy of the book. And as I've said before, it's a big thank you to LEXIS and to the Family Law imprint that we have it. The date of publication is cited at 2018, and I'm recording this in the summer of 2018. There's the book again, very small. It's easy to read as well. I mean, what you're looking for, just opening it in the middle, This is about neglect. It's an important area. Neglect, legal responses to neglect. It talks about the legislation, child neglect in criminal cases. It goes back to the Children and Young Persons Act 1933. But it's an important subject matter, area of law as well. And I'd like to thank everybody very much who's been involved in it. Obviously the two authors, that's Gary Norton, who's a lecturer in social work, and of course District Judge Rhiannon Davies. I think the important thing to bear in mind with this book is that there is a lot of emphasis placed upon the comments and the detail in the book, which I think will be of great assistance to anybody involved in this area. So big thank you to all concerned, and I wish you well with your practice. Bye-bye.